Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today here at Vahle Inc. My name is Stephen Maida, and in this video today, we're going to be going over how to properly cut down our KBH enclosed conductor bar. With a few simple steps, you'll be able to achieve a professional result quickly and safely. Now, before we go ahead and move forward, I ask that you go ahead and press that subscribe button below, so that way you're notified about any videos that come out in the future. And if you have any videos that you'd like to see on this channel, go ahead and leave a comment in the comment sections, and we'll get that to you. Now, before we start this process, let's go over the tools that are going to be necessary in order to complete this correctly. The first tool is going to be a tape measure, a marker, a circular saw or bandsaw, 10 snips, wire brush, a file, a Dremel with a 5/32 drill bit, a drill with a 3/16 drill bit. The only tools that you're going to need to purchase here from Vahle is going to be these stencil tools that for notching out the KBH housing and then notching out the copper conductor. These are the only two things that you will need from Vahle in order to do this correctly. We'll have the part number below, which is 600341. If you need a reference or need to get this tool, go ahead and reach out to us and we'll go ahead and get you set up for that. Now, before we can start this cutting process, we have to figure out what size section we're going to need in order to complete our KBH system. So we're going to take my tape measure, and we're going to come over here to this demo gantry where we have it set up to take our measurement. The key thing in this measurement is going to measure from copper in to copper in of that gap. So the first thing you're going to want to do on one side of this piece of KBH, there's going to have joints on there, these little black things, or they might be bolted joints. You want to remove two of those or one in order to get an accurate measurement. So I'm going to take my tape measure. I'm going to hold on to this copper strip because without the joint, it'll get pushed back into the housing. And of course, if it's longer than your arm span, you probably want to have a partner to hold this in. So we're going to come over here, and I'm going to make sure I'm holding on to that tip, and I'm going to get a measurement of 49.25. All right. So we're going to take that measurement of 49.25. We're going to go out to our professionals out there in the production shop and get this process started. Hi, Don.
Hey, Stephen.
All right, everybody, this is Don. He's our production manager here at Vahle Inc. And today he's going to be showing us how to properly cut down our KBH housing. So, Don, I have a section that I need cut down to 49.25 inches. Okay. Will you please take us through the process of cutting that down from a normal 4-meter piece down to that size?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, Stephen, you said that the measurement overall was 49.25, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. So was that copper to copper?
Absolutely, just like you said.
Okay, just making sure. All right, so here we like to go ahead and use the metric system because the reason why is we find that millimeters is a much more precise measurement. So what we're going to do is convert that 49.25 to millimeters, which turns out to be 1251.
Exactly.
Now, our housing needs to be 50 millimeters shorter than our overall copper length.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because we need the joints and the covers to be able to connect all the rail together. So what we're going to do is take that 1251 minus 50, and that's what we're going to do our measurement from one end to the other to make our mark and cut our housing and do the rest of the process.
Okay. Just to make sure I got this right. You're saying that the conversion is 1251 millimeters, and we're going to, in order to get the measurement of how much we cut the housing, we're going to subtract that 1251 by 50, which is going to give us 1201 millimeters, and that's what we're going to cut the housing to?
Yes, sir, because what we need to make sure is that there's 25 millimeters of copper sticking out from one end to the other.
Awesome.
All right, Stephen, what we're going to go ahead and do is take the copper conductor out of here. If you don't mind, can you go ahead and take the joint out of that end?
Yes.
So that way I can remove the copper conductors.
Joints removed.
All right, and let's take out these copper conductors. All right, so now that the copper conductors are removed, we're going to go ahead and measure our total length for the housing, and then we're going to go ahead and proceed to our cut.
And that measurement was, again?
1201.
Okay.
Minus the 50.
Yes, sir.
So, make our measurement, mark. Use the square for a nice straight edge. And there's the line for our cut.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay, Stephen, so now that we double checked our measurement, we're going to go ahead and proceed on with the cut. Okay, Steven, so after we made our cut, what we always want to do is double check and make sure that the length is what we were looking for.
Awesome.
And we are right at 1201.
Perfect. So Don, I got a question. What are the best practices whenever using a circular saw while cutting our KBH housing? What do you recommend for our viewers?
Well, what I recommend, and it's what we do back here in production, is first of all, safety is our priority. And then what we like to do when we're making our cut is go at a nice steady pace in order to have a nice clean cut on the housing, as well as once you're done cutting, leave the blade down and turn off power to the circular saw and to basically avoid the housing from chipping on the ends.
Okay.
Because it tends to do that if you raise up too fast and the blade is still spinning, it will catch on the end.
Okay.
So I recommend that mostly because you want it to look nice.
Well, you're the professional, so we're going to follow your guidelines.
Okay, so our next step is we want to go ahead and start doing the end finishing. Now, as we can see here, we have nice clean end finishing on the side that we didn't cut. And this end finishing is very important. So what we're going to do is take this end finishing tool, and it's for the KBH housing, and we're going to go ahead and align it with the edge of the housing and cut out these holes. Now, these holes are very important, and I'm going to allow Steven to go ahead and explain that to you guys.
Yes, he's very correct. These holes on the side and these slots are very important. The holes on the side are going to be dremeled out for our prongs that are in our joint caps. What that does, that prong is going to fit into that hole and prevent the housings from sliding back and forth and separating. And then the next 4 slots we're going to make is going to be with our Dremel, and we're going to be dremeling out our voltage creep lines. What this does is goes in between the conductors to prevent any, it makes it to where there's more surface area that needs to be covered with conductive material so that they don't arc out. So that break in there is going to prevent that from being conductive in any way. So I'm going to go and give this back to you, and we can go and resume with this.
All right, so what I'm going to do is back off the wing nut, and then I'm going to apply this with the die facing away from the area that we cut. So that way we're putting the cutout holes on the edge. And I'm going to tighten down on this to get a nice tight grip. And then we're going to go ahead and proceed on to the Dremel. What we're going to do is go ahead and secure the rail to the table and then proceed on dremeling out the holes. After doing one side, you'll flip, secure, and drill out the holes again. After finishing that, you'll back off the wing nut. You'll have a bit of burrs. You can take a wire brush or a razor blade and use that in order to clean up the ends. And housing steps are now done. Now that the housing portion is complete, we need to move on to measuring out to cut our conductors. So we're going to measure out that length of 1251 millimeters, and we're going to mark and use the square to get a nice straight edge. And then we're going to take our shears in order to cut through the conductor and have it at the proper length.
Okay. I noticed you're using shears on this, Don. This is our 63 amp copper, which is our thinnest copper that we have for our KBH. Now we also have 100 amp, 200 amp that we sell in other sizes in between that. What would you use to cut down those conductors?
What I typically use is a circular saw that you still saw me use for the housing after we do our measurement. But I would recommend in the field to use a portable circular saw or even a portable bandsaw.
Okay. So portable bandsaw or portable circular saw, which can be used in the field to cut down the thicker conductors.
Yes. So after this, we're going to rotate and put in the conductor into the KBH conductor stencil to notch out where our joints will be going. So I'm gonna put this here and then use a drill and a 30 seconds drill bit in order to drill through here and make those notches.
Okay.
So after making those holes, we have our notches now that will be useful for putting the joints on.
And then this is where we use the file
in order to clean out all those burrs and have a nice smooth finish on the copper, which will be helpful for those collectors.
And do you recommend rounding the edge out?
Yes,
as well,
in one direction in order to smooth it out and make a nice smooth transition.
Okay. And then you typically recommend to grab a joint to put on there to make sure it's clipping in properly. Okay, awesome.
So after doing that, we're going to also rotate it and put on the dumbo ears by using the punch tool.
And what's the purpose of the dumbo ears, Don?
The purpose of the dumbo ears is in order to keep the copper from sliding around in the housing. Okay. So the joint itself isn't enough to keep the copper from sliding out on the joint side. So these dumbo ears actually help secure one side while the joints secure the other.
Okay, because only one side comes with the joints and the other side doesn't. So this prevents it from sliding out the housing. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Very important.
All right.
So you're taking your punch and using the hammer and just making some
nice
flat. Okay.
Dumbo ears.
Dumbo ears. Gotcha. That's a good name for that. Okay. So another thing for everyone to know, like this is going to be going into basically a monorail or loop system, and that we're having to finish both ends on this in order to put it in there. But if you have a straight runway and you're just going to be terminating the end because it doesn't need to be a 13-foot stick, it needs to be a 6-foot stick, you can actually go ahead and still cut it to the length that you need it to, but you don't have to notch out the end finishing on the ends on there. You can just cut it and then that be done with it.
Okay, so the next step is going to be our assembly step. So one important thing to take note of is whenever we're assembling, we like to take note of the orientation, because orientation matters when it comes to putting this together and making sure everything lines up in the correct ground orientation. You can have an inside and an outside depending on, insulation framework. So the big thing is we want to make sure that the ground is always going to be on our left side. So Steven, since the ground is technically on your left side, we are going to insert the copper conductor all the way through and go on from there.
Okay. And just to know, everybody, this is very important to start with the ground, because on our 63 and 100 amp KBH size bar, all the conductors are the same size. When you get up to the 125, the 160, 200 amp size conductor bar, those have a smaller PE. So you want to start with the thinnest copper and insert that into the PE. Then the other three conductors, which are going to be for the phases, are all going to be the same size. So that is very important. Safety is very important. So that's why you start with the PE. So let's go ahead and finish up with this, and we'll go ahead and insert the rest of these copper strips in there, and so we can get this finished. I know y'all are ready to get this done and get home to your families.
And here's the last one. So after inserting the copper strips on the correct side, we're going to also take the joints, which could be spring or the bolted joints, and we are going to apply these joints at the ends Steven's helping me out by holding on to the copper. If you don't have an extra hand, you can take some needle nose pliers and apply them right here in order to hold the copper from moving.
Gently.
Yeah, very gently. It doesn't take much. You just hold it in place. And then go ahead and snap these in. And we are good to go.
Okay. So everybody, that is our completed piece of KBH. Don is our expert, and I really I appreciate you coming on here
Anytime.
and showing us how to properly do this like a professional, Don. With your guidance, we're going to make it professionals out of all our technicians out there representing KBH from Vahle. Thank you all and have a great day.